my novinky, my news. But before, I will shortly look at the today's timeline. Thank you very much. Before I start, our speakers are Martin Kolář, Georgi Marchuk, and Roman Schejbal very soon after me. So news as traditional beginning of our meetup. I will look quickly at the current status of browsers. So what the browsers are: Microsoft Edge 114, Firefox 114. Both, nothing interesting happened in them, I'm sorry to say. Of course, Microsoft is depending on what's new in Chromium, and I will cover that later. And in Firefox, unfortunately, nothing special arrived in this version. So let's look quickly in Chrome 114, which was released at the end of May. And I prepared a small CodePen about a new API called Popover. Does anybody know Popovers? Have you looked at it already? Okay, so I'm here to introduce you to it. So this is my CodePen. So we have small, is it visible enough? Okay. Better? Yeah. Okay. Even better? Yeah, good enough. Maybe too much. Okay. Okay. So simple markup. We have one wrapper section ID kotviště, one button, and one article with ID. And now, by simply arranging, adding attributes into HTML, I will create a popover very quickly. So I will add the Boolean attribute called popover to the article. Suddenly, that stuff disappeared. Then I will add another magical attribute to the trigger, which is the button. And it's called popover target, so it's very clear. This value must match the ID of the popover. Simple. And I'm done. This is native popover and HTML. It works in current version of Chrome, which is this one, so 1.1.14, and Safari is working on it, and it will be probably in the version 17, which will be released at least as beta during the summer. It's not all. The API of Popover also added something to the CSS. So, because at the moment, the Popover is positioned, basically you can imagine like position fixed. So it's centered on the page, on the viewport. But if you want to, which is logical for Popovers, relate it to some element, again, wrong position, not here, but here. Yes, this new attribute, anchor, again, the value must match the ID of the element I want to relate it to. So now it will be, interestingly, misaligned. And we have this special new stuff in CSS. Okay, live coding as usual. So delete it in a simple way. So now we are positioning the popover using this anchor method function. Sorry for my terms, which is now defined by the ID and the anchor here. And you can also do much more. You can set up these anchors in CSS using custom properties and much more. So I don't go that deep. There are more interesting talks waiting for you. So look at it. Look at the MDN specification. It's very, very interesting, very cool stuff. And if Firefox will work on it, I don't know. I haven't found any information. We will be able maybe later this year to use this in production websites. So back to my presentation. So this is Popover, new stuff in Chrome 114. And now look at Safari. Safari current version is 16.5. 16.6 will be released in the beginning of summer, as well as Safari 17 beta. And what they introduced, they followed Chrome, so now native CSS nesting is working not only in Chrome, but also in Safari. Firefox is still working on it, so we cannot use it, but we can start playing around with it.
In the new Firefox.
Is it already there?
Yeah.
So I missed that. Sorry, Firefox. I didn't mean it. Okay, so it's cool. I will cover later the differences between CSS nesting and preprocessors. Now I want to look at these new pseudo classes, user valid and user invalid. You probably know the situation when you, for instance, want to type in the input your email address, and while you're typing the input, and technically the designer shouts at you, oh, your email is not valid. Of course it's not fucking valid because I haven't finished it yet. So it doesn't have ad, it doesn't have a domain, etc. Because the CSS with valid or invalid pseudo class has only these two states. And this is something native, again, native to CSS and browsers, to say, hey, calm down and wait with the validation until the user is finished. So instead of using the valid and invalid pseudo class, it's better to use the user valid, user invalid. And it's kind of, I don't know what's behind it. It's too much for me. But I understand it. It's basically waits for the blur event or something like that. So until you finished the input, it then validates the value you filled in and shouts at you that your email is not valid, or maybe marks it green that, okay, everything is fine. So this is fine. It is in Safari, and it is in Firefox already in a couple of versions back. So these are the browsers. And now what I caught in the net. One thing is this initiative. Do you know about it? Baseline. It was introduced quite currently. I listened a podcast with Rachel Andrew. You probably know. It is new initiative because, as now we discussed it, something is supported in Firefox behind flags, something is in Chrome already, something will be in Safari. And it's quite a mess, and especially in these days when all the browsers are really pushing in and new stuff is coming with every version. So now they want to put it something on some baseline for this. Sometimes you can also read an article about super cool feature like popover, and you spend 10 minutes only to read till the part will say, okay, and what to do in browsers which don't support the popovers yet. So polyfills or some workarounds. So you wasted your time reading an article which is nothing for you. This initiative called Baseline is in between browser vendors, and it shall describe a pack or set of features which is supported, comes together, and if something falls into Baseline 23, like 2023, you will be sure that it is supported widely in all browsers, in the major browsers, and you can rely on it. If some widget will have this kind of badge, Baseline 23, you will know that you can use it on your website if your website or application is compliant with this baseline. This is the initiative which is starting, so they are welcoming feedback, and it's already to be seen also already on the MDN network. So this is it. This badge says, so grid, which is quite supported property, you can rely on it, and you can use it in our modern browsers without any fear that it won't work. So look at it, and of course comment it, because it's up to us how we will tune it up. So this is new stuff by browser vendors. This is nice quote I also found recently by Gell's Law of Web Performance. A website should load before you say cumulative layout shift. Somebody measured it to be 1.722 seconds. We can do it now. I don't know if it will be heard. So cumulative shift. Mám tam. Okay, typos. Anybody have stopwatch? I don't.
Cumulative layout shift.
So this is it. Yeah. So this is how they measured it. That's why you cannot cheat. It's technical. It's technical stuff. So if you meet this challenge and your website really loads in under 1.722 seconds, you can go for another challenge. Try to load your website before you say the abbreviation, CLS. Good luck. So this is nice, and this quote was to be heard onto this year WebExpo, by the way. So, and last part is back to the CSS nesting, CSS native nesting. This is an article by Bramus. You maybe know him. First, he compares these two selectors. So C inside B inside A, and then C inside B is in A, which is slightly different because the second selector comes down to following. It matches this as the first selector, but also it matches B. Co jsem to udělal? Jo. It matches B, C in A and in B, or also if these two classes are on the parent element and the C is inside. So it selects or matches much more selectors than maybe you would expect on the first glance. At least I did. I didn't notice. And now back to the CSS native nesting. The problem is that this CSS native nesting, which we know from preprocessors and which in standard preprocessor like SAS or less will be translated into A, B, C. You know what I mean? In native CSS nesting, it goes to using this is. So it acts differently than what we are used to from preprocessors. And to prove it, I will show you another demo. Okay, I know it's small, I know. It was 2 times, wasn't it? Okay. So this is CSS native nesting. We don't need JavaScript, surprisingly. So this is it. This nesting on this markup matches both examples. The only difference in markup is that one wrapper, the main wrapper is A in the first instance and B in the second instance. Is it clear? Maybe I'm too fast, but I think the code talks for itself. But if you use the same CSS on the same markup in SAS or SCSS, only the first instance is matched. So as most of us is used to use preprocessors, maybe and you start maybe now working with CSS native nesting, don't get surprised. Remind that there is this trick. I didn't discover it. It was Bramus, so source is here. You can read the article where he goes again much deeper than me. So, okay, that's it. Thank you very much for attention. It was the first talk. This presentation, I will share it with you later today or tomorrow morning. All the code pens are available, and all the articles my sources will be there, so you can look at it and go through it in your free time.